Hello and very warm welcome at Amish Shackle 5858. I am Amish Shackle. Following news have been reported by American, European, Asian, African, Australian news channels and the news agencies. So please, let's go to the headlines.
Tonight we have breaking news as we come on the air. Ozzy Osbourne has died. We also have new reporting just in on the Cosby Show actor Malcolm Jamal Warner. The final moments, now we learn both he and his 8-year-old daughter were struggling to swim in that strong current and on the urgent effort that followed. First tonight, the tributes pouring in for Ozzy Osbourne, dying just weeks after his farewell show. The lead singer of Black Sabbath, later showing another side on the MTV reality show The Osbournes, what the family is now saying tonight. Also just in, the struggle in the ocean. Now we learn the actor made famous playing Theo Huxtable, Malcolm Jamal Warner, and his 8-year-old daughter were both struggling in that strong current and the urgent attempts that followed. Authorities tonight now say they tried CPR on the actor for 45 minutes. Also tonight here, the dangerous, life-threatening heat moving in. More than 80 million Americans under heat alerts right now. The middle of the country seeing this first and then moving into the Northeast. New York City will feel well above 100. Ginger Z standing by on what to expect and to take this seriously. Tonight, the new scare on the runway, the Delta flight taking off for Atlanta. Another passenger plane on final approach to land on the same runway. Tonight, how close these two planes came from one another and why does this keep happening? Tonight, as the White House tries to distance itself from the Jeffrey Epstein case, we now learn the Justice Department is planning to speak with Epstein's former companion, Ghislaine Maxwell. And what President Trump is now saying tonight about this possible meeting with Maxwell, who was behind bars in this case. Tonight, the Menendez case had just in here, just weeks before a crucial hearing over their potential freedom. We now learn Eric Menendez has had a health emergency. Tonight, after pleading guilty in the Idaho college murders case, Brian Koberger, on the eve of his sentencing, set to come face-to-face with the victims' families, and our Kena Whitworth inside the prison where Koberger could soon be held. There is an urgent search tonight for a missing student last seen walking down the street, her family helping in the search, and their plea. Tonight, the largest great white shark ever tagged in the Atlantic. Where that shark has been seen tonight, right off the East Coast. And the New York state of mind. Two women riding in New York City pedicab, and the surprise when Billy Joel did from his car window. Also tonight here, the new study and your health. What the pandemic may have done to your brain, even if you didn't have COVID. From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World.
We got a Fox News alert for you. We just learned that Attorney General Pam Bondi has ordered her deputy AG to go meet with Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein's former associate, in prison.
Todd Pyro joins us now with the latest. Hey, Todd.
Hey, good morning again, guys. Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche saying the following, quote, President Trump has told us to release all credible evidence. If Ghislaine Maxwell has information about anyone who has committed crimes against victims, the FBI and the DOJ will hear what she has to say. I have communicated with counsel for Ms. Maxwell to determine whether she would be willing to speak with prosecutors from the department. I anticipate meeting with Ms. Maxwell in the coming days, end quote. Blanche also saying, quote, justice demands courage. For the first time, the Department of Justice is reaching out to Ghislaine Maxwell to ask, what do you know? FBI Director Kash Patel also signaling his support for the move, reacting online earlier saying, get it? Ghislaine Maxwell is the only associate held criminally or civilly liable in connection with the allegations against Epstein. President Trump called for grand jury transcripts to be unsealed, and the DOJ filed the motion for that on Friday. Back over to you.
All right.
Epstein back in the headlines.
The Trump administration vowing more transparency regarding the infamous Epstein files. Now some lawmakers are counting on Maxwell to blow the case wide open. She is currently serving 20 years in federal prison.
All right, let's kick things off with our justice correspondent, David Spunt. He's got the very latest on this from Washington for us. So, David, how is Maxwell's legal team responding right now?
Well, Sandra, Maxwell's attorney says that Ghislaine Maxwell will tell the truth when spoken to by Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche. And in the same statement, the attorney praised President Trump for, quote, trying to get to the bottom of this. Now, AG Pam Bondi and her deputy Blanche made this surprising announcement on social media this morning. Blanche in active negotiations to meet Maxwell in prison. She's been in Florida, in Tallahassee, for 3 years. President Trump says he's okay with the meeting. Watch.
He's a very talented person. He's very smart.
He's talking about Todd Blanche. Blanche said in a statement, the Department of Justice does not shy away from uncomfortable truth nor from the responsibility to pursue justice wherever the facts may lead. The joint statement by the DOJ and FBI of July 6th remains as accurate today as when it was written, namely that in the recent thorough review of the files maintained by the FBI in the Epstein case, no evidence was uncovered that could predicate an investigation against uncharged third parties. The president has told us to release all credible evidence. If Ghislaine Maxwell has information about anyone who has committed crimes against victims, the FBI and the DOJ will hear what she has to say. Ghislaine Maxwell talked to the previous DOJ and lost her case. She's serving that 20-year federal prison sentence in Florida, convicted of aiding sexual predator Jeffrey Epstein by bringing underage girls to him over the years. She was sentenced, as I said, in 2022 and has been behind bars since. Now, this keeps the Epstein story, one that President Trump and the administration wanted to go away, in the headlines. But officials now feel they are in the driver's seat. Trump has recently said, the Attorney General, as you see him there with her on March 14th, he says that
on this Tuesday night, tackling U.S. tariffs, Canada's first ministers unite to come up with a strategy.
We're only going to accept the best deal for Canada.
Who thinks the Prime Minister is being too soft? Gaza's grave crisis.
We spend our days, our time, just drinking water. There is nothing.
The growing number of Palestinians starving to death, refusing to be silenced.
For the next 10 months, the gloves are off.
The fears critics of U.S. President Trump are being censored. Plus, Ozzy Osbourne was no ordinary man. He was a member of music royalty.
All I want to do is make people smile, but there's so many people that do think I'm that devil, you know.
The tributes to the Prince of Darkness.
Global National with Donna Friesen. Reporting tonight, Carolyn Jarvis.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. Trade and tariffs dominated meetings between Canada's premiers and the Prime Minister today. There are just 10 days left for the federal government to reach a deal with U.S. President Donald Trump or potentially face punishing penalties. But as Mackenzie Gray reports, not everyone can agree on the best way forward.
Even political rivals coming together to plan the path forward against U.S. tariffs.
We'll be reinforcing those discussions over the next few days in Washington with the United States. We are looking for the best deal for Canada.
The Prime Minister's update on what the best deal might look like seemed to be a bleak one.
Donald Trump is very, very hard to deal with just because it's so fluid. It's constantly moving with him.
Doug Ford's recipe for success against the Americans hit back with dollar-for-dollar retaliatory tariffs.
The only thing I believe with President Trump and Secretary Lutnick that I've seen, you have to be tough. If you're weak, they will run us over.
Other premiers more cautious.
We have to be conscious of the impact on the retaliation on our own economy, because there is one as well.
Individual retaliations from Canadians catching the eye of Donald Trump and his Canadian ambassador, who's taken note of boycotts on travel to the U.S.
That doesn't necessarily send real positive.
Good morning. Tributes flood in for the late Ozzy Osbourne.
The rock star passed away aged 76, just weeks after his final on-stage performance.
We remember the incredible life of the Birmingham native turned Black Sabbath legend.
Food delivery services and the Home Office team up to crack down on illegal migrant workers.
The Prime Minister leaves his cabinet with a parting message as recess begins, warning that the summer riots could be repeated without an iron fist approach to immigration.
Yeah, with protests over hotel housing asylum seekers in Epping, there's now reports of police on the scene of a demonstration outside a hotel in Canary Wharf.
He's back. Former Foreign Secretary Sir James Cleverly is confirmed as the Shadow Housing Secretary. But could it cause even more division in the beleaguered Conservative Party?
Talking of beleaguered things, a sad day for the Sussexes. Prince Harry and Meghan's £100 million Netflix deal is reportedly scrapped.
And in sport this morning, well, the Lionesses leave it really late again with a last-minute equaliser and the last-minute extra-time winner to beat Italy and head into Sunday's Euros final. In cricket, well, England go into the fourth test against India at Old Trafford today with more needle expected between them, and West Ham could be kicked out of their stadium for 3 weeks.
Slow-moving, heavy downpours for some areas today. Other areas, there are a few showers indeed. Full details coming up in the forecast very soon.
Good morning to you. It's just gone 6 o'clock. I'm Ellie Costello.
And I'm Alex Armstrong, and this is GB News Breakfast.
Daesh, the battle against child marriage on France 24.
The Witching Daybreak here on France 24. Good to have you with us. I'm Stuart Paul for the headlines today. Donald Trump heralds a new trade deal with Japan, saying it will create hundreds of thousands of jobs. Already some critics, though, as the deal also puts even more pressure on Europe to come up with its own deal within a week. We'll hear from our correspondent.
Good morning to you. It's 6 on today's show. The comeback queens, the Lionesses, are into the final of the Euros after a nail-biting performance against Italy.
Plus, the boss of Goldman Sachs sounds a warning to the Chancellor on tax and regulation.
It's Wednesday, the 23rd of July. Your headlines. England gear up for their third major final in a row after a dramatic late comeback to beat Italy 2-1 in the semi-finals of the Women's Euros. The world bids farewell to Birmingham's Prince of Darkness, Ozzy Osbourne, who's died aged 76. Sky News visits the Syrian hospital at breaking point after last week's deadly clashes between rival factions. And the boss of one of the world's biggest banks warns the UK is at risk of losing its leading status in the global financial system. Very good morning to you. It was heart-stopping and
This is DW News, and these are our top stories. United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has described the humanitarian situation in the Gaza Strip as a horror show. Guterres told the UN Security Council that the system of distributing aid in the Gaza Strip is, quote, being denied the conditions to function. It comes as Israel widens its ground offensive in the Gaza city of Deir al-Balah. Top Republican lawmaker Mike Johnson shut the US House of Representatives early to block a vote. Lawmakers were sent on a summer break a day early in order to avoid discussions about the convicted sex offender and disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein, who had been a friend of US President Donald Trump. Heavy metal frontman Ozzy Osbourne has died at the age of 76. Osbourne was the lead singer of the British band Black's family comes just after Osbourne gave his farewell show before 40,000 fans in his home city of Birmingham. This is DW News from Berlin. You'll find more news on our website at dw.com.
Tuesday at 8:30 on ABC TV and ABC iView. Today, the government executes its legislative agenda, introducing childcare safety reforms into Parliament.
It will give us the power to cut off funding to childcare centres that aren't up to scratch when it comes to safety.
Doctors in Gaza call for immediate action, with at least 15 people dying of malnutrition and starvation in one day. A teenager killed and another critically injured after a jet ski accident on Sydney's Georges River. Music world mourns the death of heavy metal pioneer and Black Sabbath frontman Ozzy Osbourne. Hello and welcome to ABC News. I'm Ros Childs.
The government is beginning to implement its legislative agenda today, introducing childcare safety reform and a bill cutting higher education debts among the first measures introduced into the 48th Parliament. Under the child safety changes, childcare centres found to be failing safety standards could have their federal funding stripped after a single breach. Political reporter Tom Lowry is in Parliament House. Good afternoon, Tom.
This is Asia Now.
It's 12 p.m. in Singapore and Hong Kong, 9:30 in New Delhi, and 11 o'clock in Jakarta. I'm Paul Sir. At this hour, U.S. strikes a new trade deal with Japan. President Donald Trump revealed significant tariff cuts for Japan, touting it as the largest ever agreement. The news has spurred Asian stock markets higher, with the Nikkei rising more than 3%. Meantime, Japanese media are now suggesting that the Prime Minister Ishiba is weighing his future after a setback in Sunday's upper house election. Another trade deal also secured after talks between Presidents Donald Trump and Ferdinand Marcos Jr. Duties on Philippine products lowered by just 1 percentage point to 19% in exchange for zero tariffs on U.S. exports. And students in Bangladesh clash with police, protesters demanding compensation and accountability after an Air Force fighter jet crashed into a school in Dhaka.
熊の説明を確認しました。
Africa News. The news.
Representatives of the Arab League held an emergency meeting in Cairo on Tuesday to discuss the war in Gaza and the unfolding humanitarian crisis inside the enclave. Palestine requested the extraordinary session amid the escalating famine threatening the more than 2 million people living in Gaza.
Gaza تموت جوعا. Gaza مخطط لها.
Gaza is dying of hunger. Gaza is planned to be evacuated.
يعد لها ما يسمى بين قوسين.
A so-called humanitarian city is being prepared for Gaza, a new city of death and prison under humanitarian labels.
والسجن الجديد تحت مصطلحات إنسانية.
A Palestinian representative condemned the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, saying the Israeli-backed group forces civilians to fall in killing traps or die from hunger. More than 1,000 starving people have been killed since the end of May, according to the UN. We won't forget the steadfast Gaza, whose people are bleeding, suffering and starving due to the brutal and continuous violations against the Gaza Strip for 21 months that resulted in killings, destruction and displacement. And today, the humanitarian situation has reached its worst levels due to the starvation policy that has become the occupation's weapon that turned the Gaza Strip to a land soaked with blood, an inhabitable environment and a famine area that horrifies us daily with images of struggle that reach the level of mass death. In a previous summit, Arab League leaders called for increased pressure on Israel to end the war in Gaza.
An appellate court in the United States has ruled that the Trump administration can end a program that grants temporary deportation protections to more than 10,000 people from Afghanistan and Cameroon. The government argued that the TPS program is intended to be temporary, and Cameroon and Afghanistan are now safe enough for people to return. Last week, a flight arrived in Haiti from Florida carrying 95 people deported from the US. In June, the Department of Homeland Security terminated legal protections for hundreds of thousands of Haitians, setting them up for potential deportation. 1 month earlier, the Supreme Court allowed the Trump administration to end TPS for Venezuelan migrants, and hundreds were deported to El Salvador, where they were held in a high-security prison. On Friday, more than 250 Venezuelans returned home in exchange for 10 Americans held in Venezuela. Immigration advocacy group CASA sued the administration in an effort to block the removal of TPS. It says the move is based partly on racial animus, deporting people from predominantly non-white countries while removing immigration barriers to people from countries the administration believes are predominantly white.
The United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres on Monday said sustainable development goals were at risk in the current political climate. Guterres spoke to ministers of UN member states during the 2025 High-Level Political Forum on Sustainable Development in New York.
Sustainable development goals are not a dream, they are a plan to keep our promises to the most vulnerable people, to each other and to future generations. People win when we channel our energy into development, but we must face a tough reality. Only 35% of SDG targets are on track or making moderate progress.
The UN chief called for urgent action as the wars and perils of the world are pushing SDG targets further out of reach.
The global economy is slowing, trade tensions are rising, inequalities are growing, aid budgets are being decimated while military spending soars, and mistrust division, and outright conflicts are placing international problem-solving system under unprecedented strain. We cannot sugarcoat those facts, but we must not surrender to them either. The SDGs still are within reach if we act with urgency and ambition.
The 17 Sustainable Development Goals are meant to reach their targets by 2030.
New York City's Democratic mayoral nominee Zoran Mamdani is visiting his birthplace of Uganda to celebrate his recent marriage and take a short break from the campaign trail ahead of the November election. Mamdani shown here campaigning in New York, celebrate recent marriage and take a short break from the campaign trail ahead of the November election. Mamdani shown here campaigning in New York announced the trip in a video posted to social media. In the video, he jokes that he's decided to heed the advice of some online critics to go back to Africa, but he says he wants to apologize to haters because he will be back in New York at the end of July. The 33-year-old state assemblyman has been under attack from opponents and even members of his own party since he beat former New York State Governor Andrew Cuomo to the Democratic nomination. His opponents in November include Cuomo and incumbent Mayor Eric Adams. Mamdani was born in Kampala to Indian parents and moved to New York when he was 7. He was naturalized as an American citizen in 2018.
African. He rose from the Prince of Darkness to a pioneer of reality TV. Tonight, remembering Ozzy Osbourne, the music world paid tribute to the British rock giant who defined the earliest days of metal as the frontman of Black Sabbath, biting the heads off birds and bats along the way. In the 80s, his solo career took off, and as a father, his home life on the Osbournes ushered in a new era of reality TV. The remembrances across the world tonight. Also tonight, Pam Bondi's deputy and the president's former personal attorney, Todd Blanche, says he'll meet with Jeffrey Epstein accomplice, Ghislaine Maxwell, and why the House is leaving the Capitol early to avoid a vote calling for the release of more Epstein files. What happened to Malcolm Jamal Warner? Tonight we're in Costa Rica to learn more about how people on the beach tried to save his life and what our team saw right when they walked on the beach. The global heat wave, 70 million facing temperatures that feel like it's over 100 degrees in the U.S. as crews battle wildfires, even firenadoes across Europe. Coca-Cola about to taste a whole lot sweeter. President Trump's push to use American cane sugar over corn syrup. What the soda giant is saying about the change and the politics behind the push. Find My iPhone, how a church in Miami inadvertently got mixed up in a black market pipeline of stolen cell phones. Stephanie Goss tracks the story from North Carolina to Florida to China to explain what happens to your smartphone when it's taken. This is NBC Nightly News with Tom Yamas. And good evening. Tonight, the world remembering the death of a rock star. The often outrageous Ozzy Osbourne. Remembering the metal and the madness of the Prince of Darkness. I'm going off the rails on a crazy train. From CBS News headquarters in New York, this is the CBS Evening News. Good evening, I'm John Dickerson. I'm Maurice Dubois. We'll have more about the death and life of Ozzy Osbourne in just a moment. But we begin with the Jeffrey Epstein case. Speaker Mike Johnson is taking the extraordinary step of sending the House home rather than deal with demands for the release of more Epstein files. And as the Trump Justice Department gets ready to interview Epstein's former girlfriend and co-conspirator, the president tried again today to change the subject to anything else. That included accusing former President Barack Obama of treason. President Trump adding, it's time to go after people. Ed O'Keefe is at the White House. Ed?
Good evening. At almost the exact same moment today, Congress and the White House were once again interrupted by the Epstein case, something that appeared all but settled 4 years ago. But growing bipartisan pressure is keeping attention on the case. In announcing plans to meet with Ghislaine Maxwell, Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche says he wants to ask, what do you know? And he plans to do so because no lead is off limits.
Congressional leaders and the Trump administration take steps to quell increasing frustration over the investigation into sex offender Jeffrey Epstein.
The president of the Philippines visits the White House amid trade tensions and fraying relations with China.
And as some anti-abortion rights activists turn their focus to birth control, we examine the facts about contraceptives and how misinformation is rapidly spreading online.
You hear these wild things. Birth control methods are one of the most researched hormones in our healthcare system.
Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. The World Health Organization has accused Israeli forces of attacking its staff residence and main warehouse in the city of Deir al-Balah in Gaza. On Monday, Israeli forces entered the WHO premises and handcuffed, stripped, interrogated male staffers and family members. One WHO staff member remains in detention. So far today, Israeli forces have killed at least 43 Palestinians, including 10 aid seekers. Israel killed another 60 Palestinians on Monday. This comes as the health ministry in Gaza says at least 15 more people, including 4 children, have died due to famine and malnutrition over the past 24 hours. Michael Fakhri, the UN Special Rapporteur on the right to food, told Al Jazeera, quote, "What we're seeing now in Gaza is the most horrific stage of Israel's starvation campaign. This is
Thank you for watching Amish Shakil 5858. I am Amish Shakil. I hope you will visit again. Have a good life. Bye-bye.